Hello everyone, welcome back to another film review discussion. My name is Adam, and in today's episode I want to talk all about my favorite directors. Now I will say this before I start, there's a lot of directors in here that I'm not mentioning, like Alfred Hitchcock, David Lean, and Stanley Kubrick, and it's mainly because I haven't seen enough of their films, or I haven't seen any of their films. These directors I grew up with, and so that's what this list represents. These aren't in any particular order, and even though I know that there are a lot more directors that I'm not mentioning in this video, I do still enjoy their work. I boiled it down to the core directors that I grew up and enjoy watching their films and would classify as my favorite directors. Michael Mann, I haven't seen all his films, but what I have seen, I've absolutely loved. For me, Michael Mann is a director who knows how to create a great story with action in it. Out of all his films here, I've seen Collateral, I've seen Ali, I've seen The Insider, Heat, Last of the Mohicans, and Manhunter. I haven't seen those other films, and I'm looking forward to watching them because I do enjoy his work. I think he focuses on kind of like story and characters, the writing of the script with the way characters are related to each other against the backdrop of the story. It has great action in it, and yet heart as well. Like Last of the Mohicans, it might not have the emotional touch, say like Dancing with Wolves, but it has a heart to it, and it's very character driven, and the writing is great. Same with Heat, great action, great writing, great characters. If I had to choose just one of these films as my favorite, I think it would be The Insider. It's not a full-on action film, say like Collateral. It doesn't have the heavy emotional heart like Ali, but for me, out of the ones I have seen, it's a true story. It has great characters, or rather great actors who portray those characters, and I think so far out of all the, I don't know, Heat as well, it's a tough one actually. I think Heat is good, great action or whatever, the great scene between Pacino and De Niro, but for me, The Insider has that heart that Heat lacks. Like, Heat's got heart, don't get me wrong, but The Insider's got more heart behind it, and it's not an action film, it's him doing sort of like quote unquote a normal film, but I do enjoy watching that. I think it's a great film. Martin Scorsese is the king of crime thrillers. Like, his body of work is basically a mafia playbook. Like, I haven't seen all his films, and I'm looking forward to watching the ones that I haven't seen. Like, of his films, I've seen bits of Raging Bull, and bits of Taxi Driver. I haven't seen them fully. Bits of Mean Streets, but again, not fully. But I've seen The Color of Money, Goodfellas, Casino, Gangs of New York, Bringing Out the Dead, The Aviator, The Departed, bits. I don't think I've seen Shutter Island in full. I've seen The Wolf of Wall Street and The Irishman. Now, he is great at creating, like, sometimes based on a true story, but great at creating interesting characters with like really nice dialogue. Like, I feel like he's like Quentin Tarantino's dad, with his style of films. It's like Quentin Tarantino has followed that on, and then obviously laid down his own sort of ideas and tropes on his films. But Martin Scorsese is like the granddad, or the dad of Tarantino. Very, I would say, similar films. Like, I really enjoy watching his films, and although I don't look like, oh, I can't wait to watch the next Martin Scorsese film, I do try and watch his latest, like Killers of the Flower Moon. I haven't seen that, but I know I'm going to enjoy it, so I've got no rush to watch it. out of all his films, if I had to choose just one as a favorite, like, this is actually a tough call, because like, I really enjoyed The Color of Money. It's a sequel film to The Hustler, and it is a really good film. I enjoy playing pool, so I relate to that film. Same like I relate to The Aviator, which is about planes, and Howard Hughes. For me, it's a three-way tie between Casino, The Aviator, and The Wolf of Wall Street. Like, The Wolf of Wall Street changed my life. It actually made me want to go self-employed. But those three films, Aviator, Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, are a tied joint, you know, between, like, if I cannot choose just one of those as for me, his best film, like, that I love. It really is a tie between them all. I don't know, but yeah, I just love his films. Like, they're just great stories, interesting. Like, even as long as The Irishman was, it was an interesting story, you know. He doesn't do stinkers as far as I've watched. Like, I again haven't seen them all. I'm sure he's got a couple of stinkers in there, maybe, I don't know, but I'm gonna look forward to watching like Raging Bull, Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Cape Fear. Like, I haven't seen those yet. Just bits and pieces and scenes. Like, I don't even think I've seen Shutter Island yet, actually. But yeah, Martin Scorsese, great director. Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott is a great visionary director. Like, his films look fantastic. Production, costumes, even when going into like special effects, you know, they look great. I've seen pretty much all his films except for The Duelists, Someone to Watch Over Me, Black Rain, 1492, White Squall, Matchstick Men, Kingdom of Heaven, All the Invisible Children, Robin Hood, The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings, The Last Duel, and that's it. I've seen all the others, and they're all great visual films in their own right, but also characterization in his films. Like, building great sets is great, but then if you fill it with characters that are unbelievable or actors who aren't very good, well, there's no point of having these visuals if it's not backed up with substance. And, you know, the choices he makes in his films, it's backed up with substance. All those beautiful sets he builds, you know, coming from an art world has definitely benefited his body of work. You could take any one of these films and it's shot beautifully. Camera angles, you know, building sets or finding locations, they're really nice. They're really beautiful. Like, if I had to choose just one of these films as my favorite Ridley Scott film, like, I'm sure everybody, it would be like Alien or Blade Runner, stuff like that, but for me, it's Legend. You know, it is like, it was totally built in a studio on sets, and yet it's got forests, mountains, you know, hell, basically. It looks amazing, and the makeup and the costume for Tim Curry, you know, is just ace. And like, might not be Tom Cruise's best performance, but it still works. And I love the music score. There's two versions of music there, like, you can, you know, choose from. And it's a really great film. I love watching it. It's a full-on fantasy. It's like all three Lord of the Rings in one, basically. And that's probably my... And in all honesty, I love The Martian as well, you know. And like American Gangster, Gladiator. But yeah, for me, it's Legend. Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is probably a Marmite director. You either love his work like I do, or you absolutely hate his work. I feel like those who watch his films are either sitting there going, I don't bloody understand what's going on, load of bollocks. Or they go, this has been cleverly put together, well written, well executed, I get it, and I love it. You know, it's one or the other. You know, there's no middle ground with the Nolan. Like, he hasn't done a lot of films, but the ones he's done are very unforgettable, very impactful. The only film I've not seen out of his entire lineup is whatever that following first film is. Like, I've seen pretty much everything he's done except for that one film. And, you know, he started late, like 2000 and beyond. 23 years. He, you know, say 23, it's actually been 25 if you count following, but yeah, it's his work, you know, is absolutely great. And one thing that I don't think is intentional about his work is that if you look at it, there are 5 tropes of philosophy in his films. You've got Memento, which, by the way, if you watch that film in chronological order, it's a completely different film. It's black and white for half of it and then goes to color, but it's a completely different film. That is a really good film, amazing. But Memento is the mind, you know, like what makes us a human is our mind. And another thing that makes us a human is our perception of the world, our perception of our reality, and that's exactly what Inception is all about. You've got Interstellar dealing with space, you've got Tenet dealing with time, and you've got Oppenheimer dealing with matter. Now, if this was intentional or not, like the 5 tropes of philosophy, I don't know if this is what it was intended, but that's what I see in his films, and like, he's nailed what it means to be a human with, you know, the mind, space, time, matter, and perception. Like, I really do love Insomnia as well, because it's not like a very hard to follow film. It's just a, you know, cop chasing a killer, but casting Robin Williams as the bad guy in the film and still being able to retain that humanity in this bad guy. It is a really great cat and mouse film. I love that one. Obviously, you've got the Batman trilogy. You know, Dark Knight out of that trilogy is my favorite, but I feel like that's him phoning it in, and they're really good films, you know. But like Prestige is amazing, great actors in there, filmed very nicely, keeps you entertained. But like Interstellar, Tenet, and Oppenheimer, they're like a trilogy of epics for, you know, like Dunkirk is above them, but those 3 are kind of woven into each other almost because of their subject matter. And if I only had to pick one film of his, which is my favorite, it probably would be Inception. That, I feel, is such a great layered film, and if you can follow it, you'd really love it and enjoy it, you know. Tony Scott is the king of action from the 80s to the early 2000s. It's such a shame we've lost him. You know, it is a loss in cinema. You know, I grew up watching his films like Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, Crimson Tide. You know, like, all of these have stellar actors in it who perform, you know, great performances. The action is just top notch. He is basically the father of Michael Bay. Like, Michael Bay is like from the seed of Tony Scott, I feel, you know. He's taken on the mantle from Tony Scott and he's running with it. Tony Scott's films are just like really fun to watch and aren't cliched or cheesy, I feel, you know. He knows how to tell a story in the most interesting way. If I had to only choose one of these films, like, out of all these films, I haven't seen The Fan, I haven't seen Domino, I haven't seen Unstoppable, I haven't seen The Last Boy Scout, or is it The Hunger, I think, the first one? Like, those are the only ones I haven't seen yet. But out of all these ones I have seen, my favorite is really a toss-up between Enemy of the State and Spy Game. Like, for me, Enemy of the State and Spy Game showcase the very best of Tony Scott. Like, Crimson Tide's probably going to be on a lot of people's lists. Top Gun, you know, Days of Thunder. Like, they're great. But for me, Enemy of the State is, and still very, very relevant today. And so is Spy Game. But they're they're Tony at his best for me. They're my favorites. I don't know if I could choose just one though, because they're very different yet they're very similar, but they're equal to me. I can't just choose one, you know. But I really do enjoy Tony Scott as a director. Steven Spielberg. Now, Steven Spielberg is my number one director, my favorite director. I have seen everything he's done except for Lincoln, Warhorse, Munich, Amistad, and 1941. Oh, and the Sugarland Express and Jewel. I don't know what Savage or the Night Gallery are. I think they're TV things, and I don't know why Jewel isn't on here. I think maybe these are just theatrical releases, so Jewel didn't get released theatrically, I think, until later on in life. But yeah, like, Steven Spielberg has got to be, out of all the directors, maybe George Lucas could be counted in this, but he has changed cinema, from my point of view, the most. If you look at his producing credits, like, he has produced pretty much almost everything you grew up with watching in the 90s, and yet he's also directed some of the biggest films that, like Jaws, Jurassic Park, Close Encounters, and still is knocking films out of the park like Ready Player One, The Fabelmans. Like, maybe he's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, growing up with him, he is my favorite director. I actually enjoy Hook. I enjoy The Lost World. I've not seen 1941 because I know it's a stinker, and I've got no, but I might still go get it. I might still watch it, just to check it out. But I still have got films yet to enjoy from Steven Spielberg. But he's definitely my favorite, and if I only had to choose one, it definitely would be Jurassic Park as my favorite film as well, of all time. But from his body of work, Jurassic Park for me is, and that's like, it's very close second as Ready Player One, because I think he knocked that film out of the park, and that came out before Endgame and Infinity War and all those Marvel films. Like, he did it first in 2018. A lot of his films, great characters, great, he knows how to tell a story and knows how to put the camera, and in the most interesting way, and is still doing it. Like, The Fabelmans is a really great personal story. BFG relied a lot on the CGI stuff, but of the classic kids book, I think that's a great film. It has a lot of heart, and yet has a lot of great, I don't know, suspenseful is the word, but the way he's a cinematic director. He has made some of the best films. E.T., oh my gosh, always gets me crying every single time, and I've probably seen it about 200 times. But yeah, Steven Spielberg is my favorite director of all time. Quentin Tarantino. Now, Quentin doesn't direct films very often, as you can see, staggered releases, but when he does, he knocks it out of the park. I haven't seen all of his films either. I haven't seen Four Rooms, I haven't seen Grindhouse, Death Proof, Inglourious Bastards, or Django Unchained, but everything else I've seen is stellar. It's first class, top notch. Even though he's not, I wouldn't he himself wouldn't proclaim himself to be a great writer, but he is. He has done passes on a lot of films that you wouldn't not even realize. He worked on some of the script for Crimson Tide, The Rock, and his films that he has written himself, I didn't realize, but Pulp Fiction actually wasn't solely written by Quentin Tarantino. It was actually a co-write between four people, like Four Rooms was, and it was meant to be a four story interwoven like Four Rooms was, until I think they backed out, and so he just decided to direct it. But I do like him and his writing style. He wrote True Romance, and Tony Scott filmed it. But if you look at the original script, it's so much different from what Tony Scott edited and filmed. Quentin Tarantino is a great storyteller in how he presents a story, you know, and his characters are all very well written. Out of all his films I've seen, Jackie Brown is hands down my favorite. Like, I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and when he retires, cinema will have lost a great director. And I know he's said he's going to retire, like, after filming so many films, but his films are great, and yes, they're all kind of action orientated, and there's like shootouts in them and lots of swearing and whatever, but that's real life, you know. He doesn't shy away from reality and showing us actually what it's really like. And, you know, yes, I haven't seen all his films to, you know, maybe I'll be turned off by Grindhouse or Death Proof or something like that, but from what I have seen, you know, and the Hateful Eight I only watched in the last 5 to 10 years, you know, didn't see it when it came out, so maybe my opinion will change, but he is a great director. Yes, definitely one of the best. David Fincher. David Fincher is probably the king of thriller, you know. He knows how to, like, and most of these are true stories, you know, not all of them, but most, you know, and they're just chilling. They're all great source material, and just well executed, very moody, the lighting is very controlled, the colors on the screen that you see are very controlled, and he loves definitely the best crime thriller director going. Out of all his films, I haven't seen The Killer, I haven't seen, is it Mark, Gone Girl, The Social Network, or that's it. I haven't seen his latest efforts, his latest 3 and The Social Network. But Alien 3, I actually enjoyed his cut of that film. I really did enjoy that film. 7 is probably, for me, the film that launched his career, but isn't my favorite film of his. The Game is a great film. It's kind of like a 7 wannabe a little bit, but it's still a great film. Fight Club, you know, that was shot such stylistically, and everybody loved it. But for me, out of all his films I've seen, The Zodiac, based on a true story, is my favorite film. Like, I love that film. I love to watch that film. And Panic Room as well is pretty good. I do enjoy that, and I can't wait to review that one. But yeah, David Fincher, a great crime thriller director. Francis Ford Coppola. Now, I gotta be honest here. Out of all his films, I've only seen 4 of them, right? And there's a lot more than 4 here, I realize. But I do like the Godfather trilogy and Bram Stoker's Dracula are the only films I've seen of his. And my favorite, hands down, is Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that would be also in my top 10 list of favorite films of all time. The best telling of Dracula ever. The Godfather trilogy is a great family saga that can be comparable to the Star Wars Skywalker saga, but told in less films and based on Earth, you know. There's so many films I haven't seen, like Apocalypse Now, Megalopolis, whatever that is pronounced, The Rainmaker, Jack. Actually, I've seen Jack, sorry. Forgot that was his. Peggy Sue Got Married, The Cotton Club. I haven't seen these. The Outsiders, haven't seen these, but I'm looking forward to watching them. But for me, the way he approaches a production is the way a director should. Like, if you watch the behind the scenes on Bram Stoker's Dracula, he like takes everybody and really makes a family out of the actors and the crew, and brings together great performances from what would be kind of like terrible, you know, actors almost, or terrible performances, but knows how to craft the best from them. I think he's a very underrated director, and it's a shame that he retired, except for that Megapolis film. Megapolis. I don't know. It's a shame he kind of retired, because I think he was making some great films. And I do look forward to watching more of his films. Definitely. James Cameron. James Cameron is obviously the most recognized director in Hollywood, and not making like the most films. You know, he just does what he does, and that's it. Out of all these films, I haven't seen, obviously Fire and Ash hasn't been released yet, but I haven't seen The Way of Water. I don't know what that Bismarck, I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen Piranha 2. But all the others I have seen, and they're just great action, great characters, great action, really interesting ideas like The Abyss, and True Lies are just two great films. You know, it's a shame that these haven't been treated well, you know, in home media. Even though they've come out on 4K, it's a shame that they haven't been faithful to their theatrical release. If I had to choose one favorite out of all these films, I would be very hard pushed between Titanic and Terminator 2. Like, I love Titanic, the ship, you know, and the story's okay. Love story, meh, whatever. But the way he shot that, you know, with building a real ship, great, you know. And Terminator 2 is my favorite of his Terminator films. A lot of people cite the Terminator as their favorite, but the Terminator 2 is just the Terminator, but polished, you know. More money, you know, more action, and more polished. And I think I'd have to go with Titanic, though, as my favorite of his films. Based on a true story, except for Jack and Rose. And James Cameron is a great special effects action director, I'd say. George Lucas. So George Lucas has got the shortest body of work, probably, you know, and the only films out of this I haven't seen are Red Tails, American Graffiti, and THX 1138. The 4 Star Wars films, you know, is what he's known for, really. And he changed cinema with his films and his production company, Lucasfilm, and the way he engineered the THX system, which filtered down into how they would then present films on home media, you know, actually revolutionized the way other filmmakers, you know, released their home media as well. You know, he was the first director to start scanning films in 2K resolution as opposed to 1K, you know, for VHS and Laserdisc. And he was the first director to start scanning his negatives in 4K, ready for a Blu-ray release, and then obviously use those same negatives or the same digital intermediate on a 4K disc. But he was always thinking ahead, you know, like Star Wars, the very first Star Wars film just revolutionized cinema in terms of special effects. And then his prequel trilogy did exactly the same thing, but instead of practical, it was for digital. He always, no matter how you look at it, pushed the boundaries of cinema. Even with THX 1138, from what I've heard of it, it is a mind push of a boundary for what, you know, stories would be told in cinema. American Graffiti is just like the all-round, you know, American kids hanging out type of film. Like, I haven't seen it, but I've seen that many clips of it. I think I know what it's about. And obviously Star Wars, and I haven't seen Red Tails. I'd be interested to see that as his film after Star Wars. But if I had to choose a favorite from George Lucas, for me, it's Revenge of the Sith, because that has the most emotional story of all his Star Wars films that he's made. And it's more polished than Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace. He'd gotten into his groove, as it were, by then, and it's like, a lot of people are going to say Star Wars A New Hope, and I get why, and I understand, but you got to remember what he released in the cinema. He said he was never happy with it. Wasn't the film he wanted. And so, like, yeah, we got the film on Blu-ray with what he wanted. You know, I don't know why he couldn't have thought of putting a rock on by R2-D2 on the day instead of doing it in post, you know, like 20, 30 years later. But it wasn't the film he wanted that you all fell in love with. And it is a good film, but I just find Revenge of the Sith so much more emotionally driven, and the stakes are higher than Star Wars A New Hope, which, yes, started it all off, but has a weaker story, I think. It's just literally the hero's journey and defeat the Empire, and that's it. Whereas Revenge of the Sith have so many layers weaving in and out with the Emperor and Anakin and Obi-Wan and the politics of it, you know, and the rise of the Sith at the end. It's I don't think it ever should have been called Revenge of the Sith, though, you know. And I think I've done a video describing what the Star Wars films should have been called, because they've all got each other's names. But George Lucas, definitely one of my favorites, and Revenge of the Sith, my favorite of his. Tim Burton. Now, I grew up on Tim Burton. The only ones I haven't seen are Frankenweenie, Sweeney Todd, Dark Shadows, Big Eyes, and Beetlejuice. They're the only ones I haven't seen. Like, I grew up on Tim Burton, and the fact that he utilized Danny Elfman as this composer, like Steven Spielberg did with John Williams, like, gave his films the voice, as it were, to his visuals. Like, I really love the style of Tim Burton. Beetlejuice and Batman, Mars Attacks, Planet of the Apes are very stylized in their production. Started to rely on heavily the CGI after Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Lost his way a bit. But I haven't seen Beetlejuice, and I'm dying to. But I think he's a great visual, not visionary, visual director. And quirky. Like, I like Planet of the Apes. His take on it is great. If I had to choose one as my favorite, it'd have to be Batman Returns. It's a great film. It's funny in places, and I do prefer it over the original Batman. I love watching his films. Big Fish is such an underrated film. Go watch it. It's such a... I mean, I don't know. Actually, it might be Big Fish is my favorite, to be honest, but it's such a great film. I love watching that film. Such a great story. But yeah, Tim Burton... And it's such a shame we never saw his Superman, although Nicolas Cage is Superman. I don't know. We saw that in The Flash, so maybe it was a good thing he didn't make it. Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis, for me, makes great adventure stories, you know? Like, again, haven't seen all of his films. I haven't seen I Want to Hold Your Hand. Haven't seen Used Cars. Haven't seen whatever that 1992 film is. Something Fiesta or Fisted. I can't read it, to be honest. Haven't seen Beowulf or A Christmas Carol. Haven't seen The Walk or Allied or Welcome to Marwin or The Witches or Pinocchio or Kier. Like, totally haven't seen his latest efforts except for Flight. But I love watching his films, like Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Romancing the Stone, Forrest Gump. He just keeps knocking them out of the park, I feel. Like, okay, Romancing the Stone isn't as revered as, say, Forrest Gump is, but I really do enjoy the adventure of Romancing the Stone, and I honestly thought he directed Jewel of the Nile, but it looks like he didn't. Wow. I love Castaway. Such a great film when it's got a lot of things going against it. Like, how do you make an interesting film when it only centers around one guy on an island? You know, how do you make it interesting? And he makes it watchable, and it's like a 2-hour film. You know, you're invested and interested in the whole film. I feel it doesn't feel that long when you're only watching one guy, you know. And I'm looking forward to watching What Lies Beneath. I haven't seen that one either, sorry. And I do want to watch The Walk, and here, very interesting, reuniting Robin and Tom. But if I had to choose one film out of all of these as a favorite, it's got to be Back to the Future, you know. And I think it's right that he hasn't made a fourth one. I think it was right to end it on that third trilogy, and that's it. Leave it alone. And I hope nobody tries to remake it once he passes. But like, I love Contact. It's a great film. Yeah, he does great films, great adventure, you know, and the characters are great. It's a bit, and there's always humor. It's always light-hearted, you know. As much as Flight was very serious in tone, based on a part true story, it had a lot of humor from John Goodman in that film, and it was honestly lifts that film. No pun intended. But yeah, Robert Zemeckis, great director. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but I think I've gone through everybody. Yes. Now, there is one person I want to honorably mention, and he isn't a director. He's a producer. He has produced a lot of these directors we've been talking about. He has produced their films, and that's Jerry Bruckheimer. His films, honestly, I feel, are just great action. They look great, and they're popcorn movies, you know. They're not like some of them are award winners, but they're not meant to be. They're meant to be popcorn, enjoyable films. And in all honesty, I'm going to go through a lot of his films in my reviews coming up in the future, but I love him as a producer, and I didn't realize that he's actually produced quite a few TV shows. Obviously, you know, these are just the films, but CSI, and the other ones that I can't remember now, but his TV shows as well as his films are just all enjoyable to watch, and they have a certain energy to them. You know, that's the thing that I hook on, is the energy. I didn't know he did Thief from Michael Mann, and gosh, wow. Yeah, so I'll be watching a lot. There's one here I don't see, though. Where is Flashdance? Did he not produce that? Because I thought I did, and I don't see it here. That's strange. Maybe that was just Don Simpson then. I'll have to look into that. Anyway, that is my lineup of all my favorite directors, and in the future I will, you know, put a list down of my favorite top 10 films. But let me know. I want to hear your favorite directors in the comments down below. I got an honorable mention as well for Michael Bay, because I really like him as a director, you know. And I think I should have mentioned him, but he's an honorable mention now. But let me know what your favorite directors are in the comments below. Thank you so much if you watched this so far, just me rambling about my favorite directors, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.